Hello. So here the frequency of induced EMF. I am discussing the topic is frequency of induced EMF. It is coming under the introduction of synchronous generators. So here, if we want to know the frequency of induced EMF, we have to consider three parameters. Those are first one is P, that is number of poles, and next N, that is the speed in RPM. That is the RPM means revolutions per minute. And next one is F, that is the frequency. So here, for one mechanical rotation of rotor, here I am taking the mechanical rotation. So for one mechanical rotation of rotor, that is equal to P by 2 cycles of EMF electrically. P by 2, here P is the number of poles. P by 2 cycles of EMF electrically. So here I already said that the for one mechanical rotation here I am theta m by theta e is equal to P by 2. So that is theta m is equal to theta e into P by 2. So from this one I am taking for one mechanical rotation of rotor, we have P by 2 cycles of EMF electrically. So then therefore then there are P by 2 cycles per revolution. Okay, P by 2 seconds per revolution for one mechanical rotation of rotor. So we have P by 2 cycles per revolution. So as speed in RPM, so in 1 second, rotor will complete n by 60 revolutions. So here I am taking per second. Okay, here I am taking per second. That means we have n by 60 revolutions. So per RPM we have n. Okay, if you want to take per 1 second RPS, there is a revolutions per second, we have n by 60 revolutions. So from these we have the frequency formula that is equal to number of cycles per revolution, that is P by 2. Okay, frequency is equal to number of cycles per revolution, that is P by 2. Here we have P by 2 into number of revolutions per second. Number of revolutions per second, that is n by 60. N by 60. So that is equal to Pn by 120 hertz. Pn by 120 hertz. Totally we have Pn by 120 hertz. That is the frequency of induced EMF. Pn by 120 hertz. Here the hertz is the units of the frequency. Okay. This is the one of the introduction topic of synchronous generator. And next, synchronous speed. So firstly we will see the definition of synchronous speed. So here we have for a fixed number of poles, alternator has to be rotated at a particular speed. Okay, for a fixed number of poles, that is, if you take in the formula, if they give the number of poles is true, that is a fixed number of poles for alternator. Okay, so we take only two poles. In another problem, if you take if they ask for four poles, if you take the four poles, there is a fixed number of poles. So for a fixed number of poles, alternator has to be rotated. Alternator is nothing but synchronous generator. Okay, alternator has to be rotated at a particular speed. At a particular speed to keep the frequency of the generated EMF constant. Okay, to keep the frequency of the generated EMF constant at the required value. At the required value, so that such a speed is called a synchronous speed. Okay, that is the definition of synchronous speed. So here I am taking for a fixed number of poles. For a fixed number of poles, alternator, that is nothing but synchronous generator, has to be rotated at a particular speed to keep the frequency of the generated EMF constant at the required value. Such a speed is called synchronous speed. So it is denoted as n suffix s. That is a synchronous speed um, representation ns. So we know that already the formula for synchronous speed, that is equal to 120 f by p. 120 f by p. So actually in our country frequency is standard, that is 50 hertz. So you are already know this one. In our country frequency standard, that is 50 hertz. Next, the maximum value of synchronous speed of an alternator is 3000 rpm. These are the very important points under the topic of synchronous speed. So one is in our country frequency standard, that is 50 hertz, and next one is maximum value of synchronous speed of an alternator is 3000 rpm. So this is another topic in the introduction. And next one, difference between DC generator and alternator. Difference between DC generator and alternator. So here, if we see the DC generator, in case of DC generator, actually we have the induced EMF in the armature conductors is of alternating type. So here So it is seen that in case of DC generator. So here I am discussing the topic difference between DC generator and alternator. So in that case, I am taking the firstly DC generator. So it is seen that in the case of DC generator, actually you know already the basically the nature of the induced EMF in the armature conductors is of alternating type. So if we go through the working principle of DC generator, we have this one. So here in the DC generator, the induced EMF in the armature conductors is of alternating type. So by using commutator and a brush assembly, it is converted to DC. So you already know this one. So by using the commutator, I am converting the alternating type of quantity into unified unidirectional quantity, that is DC. So here we are using commutator and brush assembly. It is used to convert the alternating type into DC and made available to the external circuit If you go through the working principle of DC generator, we have this one. And next, if the commutator is dropped from a DC generator, if commutator is dropped from a DC generator and induced EMF is trapped from an armature directly outside, so the nature of such EMF will be alternating. So such a machine without a commutator, providing an AC EMF to the external circuit, is called an alternator. Okay. So this is the difference between DC generator and alternator. We have so many differences is also there, but I am going to discuss those in the coming topics. Okay. This is the one of the major difference. Okay. Next, working principle of synchronous generator. So already you know that. So the alternators works on the principle of electromagnetic induction, Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction. So generator working principle is also same. Okay, the alternators works on the principle of electromagnetic induction. So when there is a relative motion between the conductors and flux, EMF gets induced in the conductors. You already know that. When there is a relative motion between the conductors and the flux, EMF gets induced in the conductors. Okay. Here the DC generators also works on the same principle. Okay. The DC generator also works on the same principle, that is Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. Same working principle we are taking to the alternator also. Okay, same working principle we are taking to the alternator also. The only difference in the practical synchronous generator and the DC generator is that in an alternator, the conductors are stationary and field is rotating. The only difference in the practical synchronous generator and DC generator is that in an alternator, the conductors are stationary and field is rotating. Okay. Conductor is stationary, but field is rotating. So in the case of DC generator, conductor is rotating, field is stationary. Conductor is rotating, field is stationary. But in case of synchronous generator, the DC generator alternator, the conductors are stationary and field is rotating. Okay. So, but for understanding the purpose, we can always consider relative motion of conductors with respect to flux produced by the field winding. So already you know this one. Working principle of DC generator we have same. Consider relative motion of conductors with respect to the flux produced by the field winding. So here we have a diagram. So these are the two pole machine. Okay, north pole and south pole. Here I am putting the conductor is there. Okay, here I am rotating the conductor. Okay, so here in this one, here we have 4 positions, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, here V is the velocity. 1, 2, 3, 4 are the positions, number of positions we are considering. Okay, and these are the magnetic flux lines. Okay, so if we already know the topic, that is velocity parallel to the flux, there is the flux direction is reverse. So velocity perpendicular to the flux, the direction is same. Okay, so here consider a relative motion of single conductor. So here I am taking one single conductor, here this one. Okay, consider a relative motion of single conductor under the magnetic field produced by two stationary poles. Here these are the two stationary poles, north pole and south pole. Okay, here I am taking, consider a relative motion of single conductor. So relative motion of single conductor under the magnetic field. This is the magnetic field. Okay, this is the magnetic field produced by the two stationary poles, N and north and south poles. These are the magnetic field produced by the two stationary poles. Here the magnetic axis of two poles produced by a field is vertical. So carefully observe here the magnetic axis of two poles. Okay, magnetic axis of two poles, that is this vertical line. This is the magnetic axis. Okay, this vertical line contains the magnetic axis. So this magnetic axis of two poles produced by the field, winding, okay, is vertical, shown dotted lines in the below figure. So this one, okay, this vertical dotted lines is nothing but the magnetic axis of the two poles. Okay, this is produced by the field. Okay, next. So here first I am taking that let conductor starts rotating from position 1. That means here. So here the conductor is starting rotating from this point. So here from this one. Okay. So let conductor starts rotating from position 1. So at this instant, the entire velocity component is parallel to the flux lines. In this case, at this instant the entire velocity component is parallel to the flux lines. So same principle in the DC generator also. Okay, so whenever the conductor starts rotating from position 1, so at that instant the entire velocity component is parallel to the flux lines, that is here the entire velocity is parallel to the flux lines. So in this direction, so the entire velocity is parallel to the flux. Okay, next. Hence, there is no cutting of flux lines by the conductor. So whenever the conductor starts rotating from the position 1, so at that time the velocity, the entire velocity component is parallel to the flux line. So if the velocity is parallel to the flux lines, means there is no cutting of flux. There is no cutting of flux. Here there is no induced EMF also. Here the induced EMF value is 0. So for that one I am taking this point. So d phi by dt at this instant is 0 because there is no cutting of flux. So if we have the cutting of flux, that means we have induced EMF. We have induced EMF. We have induced EMF. Okay. So there is no cutting of flux, means there is no EMF. That is here the induced EMF value is 0. So that's why I mentioned this point. So d phi by dt at this instant is 0, and hence induced EMF in the conductor is also 0. Okay. Next. That is for the position 1. Okay, conductor starts rotating from position 1. Here we have there is no cutting of flux. That means there is no induced EMF in the conductor. Okay, so suppose if the conductor moves from position 1 to position 2. Okay, as the conductor moves from here, the conductor moves from position 1 to position 2. So here from this 1 to from this position. So what will happen means as the conductor moves from position 1 to position 2, the part of the velocity component becomes perpendicular to the flux lines and proportional to that. So here we have. So the velocity moves perpendicular to the flux lines. That means it moves perpendicular to the flux lines. So in that condition, the flux lines are cut. The flux lines are cutting. So whenever the flux lines are cutting means there is a induced EMF. Okay. If the flux line, if the velocity is moving perpendicular to the flux direction, flux lines, so there is an induced EMF. Okay, there is an induced EMF. At the time it will cut the flux. That means we have the induced EMF. The EMF gets induced in the conductor. So the magnitude of such an induced EMF increases as conductor moves from position 1 to position 2. So in the position at the position 1, there is no induced EMF because there is no cutting of flux. Why? Because the velocity component is parallel to the flux line. But in this case, the conductor moves from position 1 to position 2. So at that time, the velocity component becomes perpendicular to the flux line. So at that time, the EMF gets induced in the conductor because the flux lines is cutting. Okay. So that means the magnitude of such an induced EMF increases as conductor moves from position 1 to position 2. Okay. Next. At position 2, the entire velocity component is perpendicular to the flux lines. Hence, there exists cutting of flux lines. Already I said that. So, and at this instant, the induced EMF in the conductor is at its maximum position. Okay. So, at position 1, there is no cutting of flux because the velocity component is parallel to the magnetic flux lines. So, at that time, there is no induced EMF. There is no cutting of flux. Here, if the conductor moves from position 1 to position 2, so at that time we have the velocity component is perpendicular to the flux lines. That means there is existing of cutting of flux. So at this instant the EMF induced in the conductor is maximum. Okay. So if the next case is as the position of conductor changes from 2 to 3. So from this to this. Firstly, it is at position 1, and next it is going to position 1 to position 2, and next it is going to position 2 to position 3. So what will happen when the conductor moves from position 1 to position 3? So, so as the position of conductor changes from 2 to 3, here the velocity component perpendicular to the flux, perpendicular to the flux starts decreasing. So whenever the conductor changes from position 1 to position 2, here the flux starts increasing. But here in this case, the flux starts decreasing, and hence induced EMF magnitude also starts decreasing. Okay, got the point? In the previous case, the EMF is at its maximum position, but here the conductor changes from 2 to 3, the velocity component perpendicular to the flux. But here the flux starts decreasing, and hence induced EMF gets also starts decreasing. Okay. So that means at position 3, again the entire velocity component is parallel to the flux lines. So at position 3, the entire velocity component is parallel to the flux lines, and hence at this instant induced EMF in the conductor is 0. So at instant 1, at instant 3, also we have there is no induced EMF. Why? Because there is no cutting of flux. Why? Because the velocity component is parallel to the flux lines. Okay, got? So at position 1 and position 3, we have no induced EMF, 0 induced EMF. Next. So as the conductor moves from 3 to 4. So if we observe the diagram, so here the conductor moves from position 3 to position 4. Position 3 to position 4. Here we have. No. So here, as the conductor moves from 3 to 4, so here the velocity component perpendicular to the flux lines. Perpendicular to the flux lines. That means it again starts increasing. Okay, as the conductor moves from 3 to 4. So velocity component perpendicular to the flux lines again starts increasing. Okay, but the direction of velocity component now is opposite to the direction of velocity component existing during the movement of the conductor from position 1 to position 2. So here the direction of velocity component now is opposite direction compared to the position from 1 to 2. That means at position 2, the maximum portion is occurred, in the positive direction. But here in this case at the position 4, the movement of conductor from position 1 to position 2 is in opposite direction. That means we have opposite direction. So but the direction of velocity component now is opposite to the direction of velocity component existing during the movement of conductor from position 1 to position 2. So here in this condition, hence an induced EMF in the conductor increase but in opposite direction. So if you observe, whenever the conductor moves from position 1 to position 2, the maximum portion occurred in the positive direction. But here in the, whenever the conductor moves from position 3 to position 4, at that condition, the maximum, the EMF is increasing but in the opposite direction. That is in negative direction. That's why we have the sine wave. So at position 1 we have 0, and position 90 we have, that means the conductor moves from position 1 to position 2, at that we have maximum condition, and after we have the conductor moves from 2 to 3, at that condition induced EMF is 0, so half sine wave will occur. Next, whenever the conductor moves from 2 to 3, we have negative direction increasing, and we have, whenever the conductor moves from 3 to 4, the EMF is coming to the same position, that is 0. Okay, here this is the working principle. And again it starts changing the position from 4 to 1. 4 to 1. So if you see this diagram, so again this from position 4 to position 1, it moves position 4 to position 1. So the cycle repeats. Okay, the cycle repeats. So again from position 4 to 1, induced EMF decreases, and finally at the position again becomes 0. Induced EMF decreases, and finally at the position again becomes 0. This cycle continues as conductor rotates at a certain speed. This cycle continues as a conductor rotates at a certain speed. That is the synchronous speed. Okay. So if you plot the magnitudes of the induced EMF against the time, we get an alternating nature of the induced EMF shown the figure. This is the working principle of synchronous generator or alternator. So I will show the figure. So this is the diagram. So at position 1 we have the induced EMF is 0, and at position 2 that is maximum value, and at position 3 the value again 0, and at position 4 the value again increasing but in the negative direction, and at position from 4 to 1 again we are EMF is decreasing, that is at the 0 position. Okay, this is the working principle of synchronous generator. Okay, this is the working principle of synchronous generator. And next we have another concept like synchronous generator alternator. Here we have some more points for the synchronous generator alternator. Those are likely these are also the difference between the synchronous generator and DC generator. Okay, and that means AC machine to DC machine. Difference between AC machine and DC machine. So here we have some points. Those are like a DC generator, an alternator also has an armature winding and field winding. So in the DC generator, we have two windings for the machine. Those are armature winding and field winding. Here alternator also we have the two windings. Those are armature winding and a field winding. But there is one important difference between these two. Those are actually in the DC generator, the armature winding is placed on the rotor. Okay, the armature winding is placed on the rotor. Why? Because in order to provide a way of converting alternating voltage generating in the winding to a direct voltage. So that's why we are putting the armature winding on the rotor in the DC generator. Okay. But the field poles are placed on the stationary part of the machine. So armature winding is placed on the rotor and the field winding are placed on the stationary part in the DC generator. Okay. But in the alternator, there is no commutator is required. That's why it is usually more convenient and advantageous to place the field winding on the rotating part. Field winding in the rotating part and armature winding on the stationary part. This is the main difference between synchronous generator and DC generator. So in the DC generator, I am placing armature winding on the rotor and field winding on the stationary stator. But in the alternator, there is no commutator is required to convert the AC into DC. So that's why here I am placing field winding on the rotor part and armature winding in the stationary part. Okay. That is the main difference. If you see this diagram, you will know, you will understand. So this is the synchronous generator diagram for a three-phase supply, for a three-phase AC supply. So here we have three phases R by B, and the outermost cover, this is a stator, and these rounded balls. If you see this diagram, these rounded balls are known as three-phase winding, and this is the rotor. This is the rotor, and this is the shaft, and this is the belt. This is the synchronous generator diagram. This is the synchronous generator or alternator diagram for a three-phase supply. Okay. So if we have the stator diagram, stator winding, so that is we are putting the armature winding here. These are the armature winding. These armature windings are placed in the stator. Okay. So this is the diagram for synchronous generator and advantages of stationary armature. So in the alternator, I am putting the stationary armature. That means here the armature winding is placed on the stationary part. Here the armature winding is placed on the stationary part in the alternator. So there is advantage of that stationary armature, that is the field winding on the alternator is placed on the rotor. So you already know that the field winding. So whenever the armature winding is placed on the stator, then the field winding of the alternator is placed on the rotor. Okay, and is connected to the DC supply through the two slip rings. Okay, through the two slip rings. So here, okay, the armature winding is the field winding is placed on the rotor. So and then the rotor end is connected to the DC supply through the two slip rings. The three-phase armature winding is placed on the rotor. Okay. So this arrangement has following advantages, that is, it is easier to insulate stationary winding for high voltages. So if we connect the armature winding to the stationary part, we have one major advantage, that is it is easier to insulate stationary winding for higher voltages. So for that one we have for which the alternators are usually designed. So the alternators are usually designed for this case only. Again, the stationary three-phase armature winding can be directly connected to load. Okay, the stationary three-phase armature winding can be directly connected to the load without going through large unreliable slip rings and brushes. Okay, here we are not using the slip rings. Okay, the stationary three-phase armature can be directly connected to the load without connecting the slip rings. Okay, but in the field winding we are using the two slip rings. But for the armature winding we are not using the slip rings. Okay, we are directly connected the connection to the load. Okay, next only two slip rings are required for DC supply to the field winding on the rotor. Okay, two slip rings are required for DC supply to the field winding, not for the armature winding. Okay. Due to simple and robust construction of the rotor, higher speed of rotating DC fields is possible. Okay, higher speed of rotating DC fields are possible. Why? Because this construction is simple and robust. Okay, these are the some of the advantages of the stationary armature and field winding. Okay.